Jackson, you're all set, right?
I am all set.
Perfect. So, Gayatri, let me know and we can start off.
Recording is in progress, Suresh. You can begin.
Perfect.
Just take the lead. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you everyone for joining in. I'm Divyesh. I'm one of the co-founders at DronaHQ, and I look at the product and engineering side of things. A little bit on DronaHQ. It's basically a low-code platform to build applications and tools, internal and external. Essentially, what we do is on the creator side of things, we help you build your user interface and experience using drag and drop kind of a tool. And at the same time, we help you connect to any of your data sources. Today we'll be talking about how can we connect to HarperDB extremely easily, and then build applications and tools on top of it, right? And any of these applications that you build can be published and released in 2 or 3 different modes. One is we have an end user portal where you can deploy any of these applications, and your end users can log in and view these applications, and interact with them, with the data source that you connect. Second is you can publish them as public applications, which will not be behind a login wall, and users can directly access with your interface and connect to any of these data sources. And third is embedding of these applications. So you can, if you have your existing portals or any of your applications that are actually running in production at this point of time, you can build widgets out of these applications and embed them in your own portals as well. So what we'll be doing today is, we'll be looking at 2 things. One is, how do we connect to HarperDB? What HarperDB is, we'll get to understand from Jaxon as well. And how do we build a CRUD application or any of these applications that we'll pick up on top of it, which Shibam will take care of. But if there are any questions in between, feel free to kind of ask. I'll pass on to Jaxon from HarperDB to give us a little bit of intro about what HarperDB is, why do people use it, and how can we help connect into a low-code tooling to build applications on top of it very easily. Over to you, Jaxon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. First, thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. I love no-code or low-code platforms. I actually came from a low-code platform. When I started working at HarperDB, I wanted a database that could sort of replicate data around a system as easily and with as little configuration as possible to pair with my low-code platform. So this is obviously a natural fit. A little bit about HarperDB, and I'll give you a very quick demo and overview of our management studio. But we are as the name would imply, a database, but we also have added a couple of extra features. First, we're a distributed database, which means you can have multiple nodes of HarperDB running in various locations, either for redundancy, resiliency against a single node going down, or because we want to lower latency by being closer to wherever our users might be. And you can read and write to any node in the system, which is different than a lot of distributed databases where you'll have read-only replicas, like a MongoDB, and you'll write to a main instance or a primary instance. We allow you to write and read from any node in the system. And then on top of that data replication between nodes and the actual persistence of data, we have an application tier that sits on top. And the reason we did that is because we have a vested interest in low latency, right? We spent all this time building a distributed database to move closer to users. And we found when we were doing implementations, we would ask people where their API servers were, so we could be in the same region or in the same availability zone or in the same data set. Like, how close can we get? And we realized that answer was never going to be good enough. And so we built an application tier here where you can build your own API endpoints and workloads directly on top of the data and eliminate all that latency that normally is between your API server and your database server. So that, in a nutshell, are the three parts of HarperDB. And now let me share my screen and show you our studio. Right. This is the login screen. You can see the URL is studio.harperdb.io. It's super easy to sign up, super easy to log in, and then you get to create organizations and then instances. And we have a free tier, and you can always leverage a free tier and install it locally, or you can spin up a free tier instance on our platform, HarperDB Cloud. So without further ado, I'm already logged in a different window. You can see these are my organizations, and this is my personal organization here. And here are the instances, and you see the DronaHQ instance. I could create a new HarperDB Cloud instance, and that's on AWS. Or we can do Verizon's wavelength. Those are only accessible if you're on a Verizon network, but obviously you're on a private network, so it's very, very fast. Or enterprise, i.e. the instances that you would install on servers that you own, or local for development. So I'm going to close that out because we already have a functioning instance here for DronaHQ. We'll log in, and this is the data you're going to be using as part of the CRUD app that you are building. But you can obviously manage that data here. So you look at schemas. These are just higher order, similar to databases and other products. And then under a particular schema, this one's called dev, we have all of our tables. And this inventory demo table holds a few records. And in the studio is actually getting the data out of the instance using what we call the operations API. We have a built-in HTTP API that is there from the moment you start up HarperDB that makes it super easy to just make requests to insert or query data using traditional like fetch commands from your CMS or Axios or any really HTTP library. So we tried to make it as easy as possible for developers to get started, get up and running. You can also do queries against that data. So I could select star from this table. I can set up users that have access to this table. We only have one user for the purposes of this demo, but I can set up multiple others. And then roles. I can assign a role to users. And what is interesting about this is super users is the user we're using now. They have access to absolutely everything. A cluster user is a user that allows the nodes of HarperDB to speak to each other and move data around. And then I could create a test role. And you can see I can grant CRUD permissions to this particular role across any given table. So I can say you can read from this table, but you can't write to it. But even better, I could do it on an attribute level. So I could set up a role that doesn't have access to, say, personally identifiable information. So your select star could look different than my select star. So it seems like a super easy way to limit access to data, control, who gets to see what, and do it all in one place. So you don't have to have multiple copies of the data replicated around. We also have a basic charting function where you can create charts based on your data. We're not going to be a Microsoft BI or a Tableau, but we are perfectly capable of charting data, and it's an easy place to do everything in one place. Replication is our clustering engine. We haven't enabled that on this instance because we don't need it, but this is where you would enable the ability for this instance to talk to other instances of HarperDB and set up the pub sub of which data lives where. And when I put a record in here, it may be subscribed to by another instance, published to a third instance. Really, you can tailor where that data exists. And then functions. This is that application layer that I mentioned before, where you could set up all your API endpoints. And so if I wanted to create one called dogs, I would spin this up. HarperDB is, after all, a dog-based company. And when this thing spins up, it will show you basically the API endpoints that if I did a get to the root level of the URL, it would do select star from dev dog, order by dog name. So super easy to spin up API endpoints, customize them, throw in perhaps third-party API requests, anything you need, you can build in our applications here. So when we look at what we're about to build today, they're making use of the operations API. However, we could also set up a super easy REST interface for tables in this database and leverage that instead of the operations API. It allows you a little more granular control over exactly what fields. You might not want to bring back specific fields as part of your CRUD app. And then just a couple more administrative, ability to look at logs, configs, and then one of the coolest parts is we have example code for any of these operations, like creating a schema or creating a table. You can simply see the operation here, copy and paste this into your code, and you're off to the races. Super easy to do, super easy to use, and hopefully everything we need for this demo. So with that, I'll stop sharing and turn it back over to DronaHQ. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you so much for explaining that. So in our next step, we will be using HarperDB as an integration for DronaHQ to build our inventory tool. So first of all, I would like to show you what exactly we are going to build. And let me just quickly share my screen. So right here in front of me, this is an inventory portal created on DronaHQ, which uses the HarperDB as a configuration. And here you can see that there are a list of items which Jackson has already explained in their own inventory, that they have all this item getting fetched in our own application, as well as we have a form with a name to add a new data to our application. So let's see how it is working quickly. Let's say there is a product name. I will quickly add, let's say, a cage. And if I just do an add item, it will quickly add to the database, and a quick refresh has been done with the whole new row. And if you want to delete or edit, simply we will be performing this in the delete option, and that's it. Okay, so let's just dive into it, starting from where we will connect our REST API for HarperDB. And on our DronaHQ platform, you can see right here in the connector, when you click on the plus connector, go to REST API. So for this API authentication, we will be using basic authentication and username password. Paste them. So now the next part, we come to configure test API for a connector. Here we want to put up the endpoint URL, and the server link we'll be using for that HarperDB. Yeah. Next, let's do a test bench. So you can see that the configuration is tested as successful, but we want to fetch the data. So that just now they have explained that we will be passing the operations. To pass the operation, we will do a post method, and in the advanced, let's do a call. And here in the body form parameter, we need to pass an operation which will help us to fetch the data from our table. So let me quickly paste the operation here. So the operation type is SQL, and there is an SQL format written here. You can see that select everything from dev.inventory demo, order by this particular attribute in a descending order, so that we will be getting the latest data each time the table gets updated. Let's give this a name. Do a test function. You can see that all the response from our table HarperDB has been fetched here. So let's save this. So by doing this, we have successfully connected our HarperDB with DronaHQ, and now one API has already been configured to fetch the data. We'll be adding different endpoints to different APIs to get to update the data as well as delete and also add a new record. So let's click on plus API. Update data. Now in this also we will be passing an operation. Quickly paste it. Now the syntax format, you can see that the operation is mentioned as update and schema as well as table is already mentioned. And here you can see that under this curly braces, there is a variable name. Now this curly braces, what DronaHQ helps you to make this variable name totally dynamic, so that you can use it to configure dynamic values and other properties later in from your applications. So let's to check. Let's say I will get a prod ID. So this is a product ID which has a name of form visa. So I'll quickly change it to, let's see. Let's do a test API. So the status code is 200 and the record has been updated for this particular product ID. Now this, let's save this, and similarly we will add two more APIs, one for adding a new data. Post raw, and the operation for this operation insert in this particular. Now you can see that what we are passing to the backend to our database is name, description, price, quantity, and all the details except for the product ID, since it is auto generator and it is used as unique. So let's do a test API. Before testing API, let's add anything. Right. Nice. Test API. So this is also done. One record has been added to our database, and let's save it. Moving on to our final API we want to add will be to delete data. So here the operation is simply SQL and delete from this particular table where product ID is equal to this. So the product ID will be sent from our application and that respective product ID will be deleted. Now, let's say I want to delete that font one itself. So we get the product ID of so one record has been successfully deleted for this particular product ID. Now let's serve. So these four are the crucial APIs which we'll be using to develop our inventory tool. And to create a new app, just simply go there, click on plus, blank app, and fill up the detail, and it will open up the builder view. So this is our builder view where we will be creating our application for our inventory portal. Now, for the UI part, you can either just go to controls and drag and drop the control you want to use. Either way, you can. DronaHQ also supports ready templates, which we will be using for 2 columns for the form. Let's use this, and you can see that the template is already been set up. Let me quickly make 2 changes to this template. Now we want to name this as we don't want this email format, and this we can change its name to awesome. So in this particular container, we want to fetch the data as well as to update the data, also or delete the data. So first thing, let me list. Now select the table grid, go to its bind data option, and there you can see that there's a drop down of quick select. From there, we have to go to the connector library. The data queries segment will pop up in the window, and here from the first, let me refresh it. Since we added the connector recently, we first have to refresh it. So name of our HarperDB. So we have searched for our REST API connector of HarperDB. Click on get data. In this way, the data query will save a variable named get data with the particular informations like whatever it is fetching from our database. And under transform response, you can click on filter keys so that these keys will only be included in table grid. So we want name, and then we want description, then we want price, then we want limit, backorder, and finally. So let's do a test and save. Here you can see that we got all the items which we have in our HarperDB database, and here you can see that the recent item which I added as a bird cage is already been listed here. So the API is also working fine. And here, let me do a quick formatting of data. So column name, let's say back order. I want it to be a single tag. Let's show you how this is. So right now it is all plain site. So when we do a format data quickly, single tag. Let me add few options. Like one for the true, another for the false. You can also give it a little bit of styling, save and close. And I think that should go. It's getting good. Now if I go back there, you can see that general formatting has been done in our table grid. And from this side also, you can do formatting to the name, and if you want, let's say we want a space, you can just give it a there. Reflect the same changes in our table grid. So our first task to display the data is done. Now moving on to the second task is that we want to update this data. Now our control table grid supports inline editing, and like while making the whole column editable. So So simply go to its properties, and in the top bar, you can see that choose column that will be editable. Now you have to understand that other than product ID, we want more or less everything as editable, right? So, so these are there. So what it does that this small pencil like icon helps you to make inline changes from this from the table grid itself. Now to continue with this, we will add events. Now event, when we make changes, it will show us a save changes button. Now that save changes is a trigger button. That particular event can be configured from save changes here. And the first action we want to do is to run through an iterate task. Now this iterate task, what it will do, the number of changes you do in each particular row, it will give them you in a object of string one by one, and this will be till the end until unless there are no other change data present in your table view. Now inside that iterate task, you have to perform a server side action, which will have our endpoint API of update date. Now you have to understand that the iterate task will give each edited row one by one, and each edited row will have their own values and attributes. And these attributes we will be fetching with the help of our keyword. So the keyword which DronaHQ provides is like, first of all, select the table view. Then that's the iterate task. But then now inside value, we'll be fetching a particular attribute. Let's say for the product ID, we'll simply paste them quickly right here. That's product ID. So now this should give me the value of product ID on each iteration. Similarly, we will fill all these blanks. So let's go to this. Back order implement. So these are the keywords I have put up to put a reference for our HarperDB connector. And continue and we'll finish. So for a test purpose, I want to show a toast whenever the whole API comes as a success response. Perfect. So iteration is there. Then we are sending the data to HarperDB, and then we are also getting a post in case of success. Finally, we want to fetch the new data, the updated data. Since the data is coming from a variable of the connector library, and we need to run that again. So go to on-screen action of run data and select our query. Save it. So we are getting the data. Let's change the price of, let's say, see. Awesome. So perfect. The item has been updated. So in our CRUD application, updation is done. Moving on, we'll be adding a form quickly on the right hand side, which will be which will have certain controls. Add them quickly. So this one will take the name of the product, and this one should get the price. This should have description. This one for the quantity. So, and this one here. So these all input controls we'll be using to get the data from user and provide it to our HarperDB database. So okay, let's give it in the add item. This button will be our trigger point, and in the events, click on button click. Now we will do a server side action. HQ. and the endpoint will be using the new data. And similarly, here also we will just put up the keyword names, and this will be like a direct linkage to our input controls. And finally, so this will have a boolean value, true, false, similar. Click on continue. So once the data has been updated, or as the new data is provided, and it gives us a success response, we again will provide a post to get a confirmation that yes, data is there. Okay. Let's do the stop center. And finally, we also want the new updated table data. So we'll do refresh variable for get data. Okay. Awesome. Close this now. Save it. Now let's check whether it's working or not. Preview. So right now in front of me, I have 11 total counts, like total number of rows present in our database. Let me add one more. Is there any pizza here? No, there aren't any pizza. Let me add a pizza with a value of, let's say, 9.88 and a description. So, quantity and 10 of them with a back order limit of 15 and back order. So you can see that the pizza item is added here, and adding a new item is also done. The final step will be to delete existing item from our itinerary. But before that, we want this whole form to get a refresh, like a new look, so that the user will be able to input more items, and they don't have to do a backspace and delete them. So what I'll do, I'll go to add item button here, and right here I will add an on-screen action of reset control. Let's do this. So the idea behind putting up an action of refresh control is that when we trigger this button, it will like provide the new data to our HarperDB database and then refresh the whole form, the controls, all the input controls, so that new data can be provided from user end. Okay. Now, the last part for this inventory portal is to delete a particular row. For that, we go to table grade properties, and right here you will find that there are action buttons already being provided. You just have to toggle it on, and a trash button will be added here. And go to the events, click on delete. So this delete click is directly linked with the trash button present on our table grid, and whatever action we provide here will be triggered with that button. So this is like similar to adding new data, just that we'll be using different endpoint. Now here we want to provide the product ID of the selected row, and for that we'll do table dot. So you can see that currently the bird cage has been selected, and this is the product ID of this particular book. Let's do continue, finish. So post also. So cross center. Continue, finish. Now, once the item is deleted, we again want the newly updated data. So for that, again, let's do data queries and update the variable. Finish. So refreshing this variable will do the work. Let's close it and preview. So if I want to delete this pizza and click on delete, it should give me the updated data without the pizza item. So with this, the whole CRUD application for the inventory portal is ready with DronaHQ and HarperDB configuration as a connector. Next part, you can publish it. Like, let's say you want to use it in your own application or in your own website, or want to share it with somebody. You first need to publish it. And click on publish. Just a few seconds it take to make the whole portal live, and it's done. Now when you click on share, you will get all these options, like if you want to add a user to your application, you want to get a public URL. Meanwhile, let's go back here. You can be able to do URL configuration or view it in an end user folder. So you can see that trying to feasible. Enable it and do it. So now you can see that we are accessing the public URL to get to this particular application. Okay, with this, I'll stop sharing my screen. Yes, that's it. Hi, Jackson. How did you find it, the application?
That's pretty good.
Right? Awesome.
That's very nice.
Thanks for the feedback. And in case if anyone has any doubt, or if you want to ask any questions regarding the HarperDB side or for the DronaHQ side, please drop it in the comment or ask them. We are here to help you. So